Firstly, we've just finished the first full academic year of Apprenticeship Levy. So the levy was introduced last May, and it's been in the press, in the media on a regular basis, mainly negative stories in terms of its impacting on apprenticeship starts, and the levy has been unsuccessful. Generally, that's been mainly in the news. In terms of from a financial perspective, the government that they were the money that they were expecting to receive in terms of levy, that's more or less hit the milestone that they wanted. It's slightly lower than the figure, but more or less it's there. Most companies still haven't been able to fully utilize their the levy for training. They've not accessed their digital accounts. I think that figure is just circa 10% of all providers. So 90% providers at the moment are paying in, but not necessarily looking at it. There's been a slight mind shift as well in terms of people's thinking, and it's moved away from selling the concept of levy to the individuals to say that's levy for you to use, to say actually levy now is a tax that's been incurred and it's government's money, but you as an organisation can utilise it for the right reasons for your staff. And they've got until next year before the money goes into the general pot. It takes a little while for organisations to really understand what this is. What I would say is that the biggest success is that now learning and development is a conversation in the boardroom. So rather than a conversation which was more in the background, it's actually a conversation now that's in the forefront of organisations. Organisations are now making a conscious decision in terms of apprenticeships. It's definitely promoted apprenticeships in the right way. They're seeing it as a decision where they're investing, where previously it was free funding available for all. So there's a mind shift, and for me the biggest one is that learning and development is now on a strategic level. It'll take time. It's not an overnight thing. So obviously the government's got a target of about 10 billion. That's of new monies effectively that's going to come into the sector. So in the short run, what's actually happened is, because there's some constraints with the levy. There's the reforms as a whole. The apprenticeship reforms bring in what they call 20% off the job training. So this is training which is sort of classroom based, individualized, and it's got to be paid for by the employer. So there's a cost. So certain professions, that model isn't really suited. It's not easy to apply that model. In other areas it's easier. So for example, with the care profession, particularly domiciliary care workers, what you're finding is it's harder for them to comply within the rules. It's also affected new starts in some way, but slightly less. So what we found is that new starts have they're still steady and they're growing, but in terms of using apprenticeships for existing staff, that's been where the biggest decline is, and that's mainly because they've got to pay 10% contribution. As an organisation, we've decided to change in terms of our offering. So before we were working very closely with SME businesses and trying to vacancy match, and what we find now is that vacancy matching service is hard for us to get a return on. So for now, at this moment in time, we're shifting our focus to work with levy employers and putting more effort with the larger businesses so we can actually service them better. We're shifting our focus away from the SMEs, because some SMEs have gone into when I say SMEs, really mainly micro businesses, where it's really the ones and twos which are harder to service, harder to get a return from. And it's just a matter of reshifting the focus. We're fully supportive of the apprenticeship as a business mechanism for us or a business for us. We're going through a transitional change, and I think that's reflective mainly on a few things. It's not just about apprenticeship and apprenticeship income or apprenticeship, the apprenticeship strand of our business. The biggest change for us has been ESF funding. So we were in the supply chain for a number of larger organisations. We were in the supply chain for organisations like Calderdale College, LearnDirect, and many others as well, and delivering skills support for the workforce. That funding stream has come to an end for most of those organisations that we were part of their sort of supply chain. That's come to an end. So a lot of our staff that were working in those areas, they've had to either reapply for new positions, or we've had to, we've not been able to carry on with their contracts. So there's a number of people that unfortunately that were working in those sectors we weren't able to retain. We've created more jobs in what we call adult education budget. So for us as an organisation, we've lost the work programme. So work programme has changed. So we had that contract since 2011. So work programme has now shifted to more towards harder to reach people, where before it was more about getting people who are slightly close to the job market, getting them job ready, which is where we see our forte. Work programme has now shifted to harder to reach people. So these are where there's the health issues. And we didn't see the fact that fitted in with our business model. So we've not really gone for contracts in the sort of new work program model. So we've lost the work program. We've also gained extra people dealing with adult education budget. So adult education budget has changed, dealing with, we're working with people from the job centre referrals, long-term unemployed. So 27, unfortunately, so 55 individuals were affected, and 27 have either left the business or in the process of leaving the business. So in total, our job losses is 27 for us as an organisation. Obviously, it affects you personally when individuals have committed to an organisation, because it's, we talk about the Pathway family, and we celebrate our culture, we celebrate the people that we're in. Unfortunately, the size of the business and what we've had to do, we've had to change that, and we've gone through a process of consultation. We've gone through a process of working with these individuals, and in some cases we're still working with them in terms of either reskilling them and working with them in terms of actually getting them back into the job market. I hope every single person who's come into our organisation, and by the time they've left or has gained something, and they can add. They can say that that experience has been positive, and we've left them in a better position. So in terms of our particular organisation, we're retrenching, we're regrouping, we're looking at the opportunities that are present in terms of devolution. So there's opportunities with the West Midlands Combined Authority, there's opportunities with areas such as Liverpool, Greater Manchester, Sheffield, London, and we're looking at those opportunities as well. We're also pitching for more work with larger employers, and so there's a lot more business development that we're doing, a lot more tendering. We've got more opportunities that are presented to us. For us, it's a decision in terms of which is the right opportunity for us, what we want to embrace, and what are the risks for going with them. Every business, when you go through stages of growth, you've got to look at developing your own skill sets. So if I'm doing exactly what I was doing 5 years, I wouldn't have the same business that I would have now. And if I do exactly what I'm doing, in a few years' time, the business is not going to change. So you've got to adapt and change. And have had to work in terms of raising the profile of our organisation to look to get these contracts. I'm a fairly shy, retiring person. I'm quite an introvert generally. I've had to go out of my comfort zone. Where it's not just about sitting at the back and sitting in the office. I've had to go out and network, build relationships, go out and talk about what the opportunities are, sell the business effectively, sell and talk about partnerships, and that has been the business. So it's not about minding the business, isn't just about sitting in the office. I've had to sort of change what I do, focus on a different way of doing things.